Today we're going to be talking about job search networking and specifically about the one focal point that I want you to anchor on that will not only get you started in the right direction, but will keep your job search networking going effectively. And because it's Saturday, and in honor of this topic, because job searching and networking feels like a rugby match, I wore my favorite obnoxious rugby jersey for you. So welcome. We got a lot of great stuff in store. Agenda-wise, I'm going to give you some context around job searching, the activities itself, but I want to give you some context around networking, why it's so important, some evidence of the fact. So I'm going to give you a few stats on this. I also want to talk to you about, what are a lot of the reasons that people don't network and some of the reasons or maybe excuses, and then also some of the mistakes that people are making. Then we'll go through that one focal point, really that major tip that you can kind of pin to the top of your portfolio, computer, and all that good stuff that'll really help you keep networking going in the right direction and in an accelerated fashion. I'm going to give you 4 steps that I would go through to get out of the gates really fast and how to do those. I'm also going to give you a case study on Stephanie, one of the boot campers who had great success with the tactics I'm going to give you. Let's talk about this. I said the context and the evidence that I wanted to provide. So a lot of you know, but I know some of you don't, that I am an executive recruiter. I have been for 15 years. I still am today, in addition to being a trainer. But for many of those 15 years, I was solely an executive recruiter, and I run an executive search firm called Mile Walk. You all are now part of the Mile Walk Academy as you are taking part in a lot of the advice that I'm giving to job seekers. But with working with those companies and those corporations, as well as job candidates, both active and passive, as we went through those years, we interviewed a lot of people. I've personally interviewed 12,000 people, or actually more, and my company, Mile Walk, over those years has interviewed over 15,000 now, as we've recruited for these companies that we have represented who enlisted our services to help them find great talent. In doing so, we conducted lots and lots of interviews, not solely to evaluate the individuals, but everything was aimed at making the right match. But also, we take those interviews as opportunities to gather market intelligence and insight, not only about the people, but about the market, about the employment market, about the techniques and tactics people are using as they go about their job search. So one of the questions we ask every single candidate that we interview is, how did you find your current job? What medium did you use to get to where you are currently or most recently? How did you find that job? Did you get found on LinkedIn? Did you apply? Was it a referral from a friend or whatever? And then how did you find your previous job? And how did you find your previous job? We usually like to try to gather 3 data points. And what that tells us is, what are the avenues people are using? But we didn't just gather those statistics. We also looked at the years they were doing that, what the market was like, the demographics, and all that good stuff. Hang on, let me adjust. There we go. And a number of other things. So I want to share with you what those 5 most popular tactics are. Networking is certainly one of them, but I want to make sure you have a more complete picture about what this looks like. So when we talk to these individuals, one of the activities that a lot of them said that they used was that they researched and targeted organizations. So I picked an organization that I wanted to work for, or a collection of them, or a market that I wanted to get into, or whatever it might have been, and I researched them, and then I applied whether there was a publicized opportunity or not. One of the other activities, as you guys probably know, is a lot of people search online. That's obviously an effective means of finding your job, but it's more effective for some demographics than others. The other one was networking, right? So a lot of people were employee referrals, or they found somebody who introduced them to somebody who ultimately gave them a job. Some people also volunteered. They volunteered, and this is even a form of networking in some fashions, but they were volunteering in a direction that they were trying to go, which led to a job. And then others said they worked with a recruiter, maybe they reached out to a third-party recruiter, maybe somebody found them on LinkedIn or something of that nature. But these were the top 5. Now, if you've been following me for a little while, a few months back in the summer, about three months ago or so, I did a similar series as we're doing right now. It was called my Job Search Masterclass. It was a 3-part video series, and the second session of the Job Search Masterclass focused on tactically these activities and in what percentage people actually found their jobs. So based on their demographic, based on who they were, where they were, how old they were, their income levels, and all that good stuff, I shared detailed statistics about these activities and what percentages you were likely to find your job that way based on who you are. If you haven't seen the Job Search Masterclass and you want more insight into all those stats, as well as some work plans into how I would allocate my time in my entire job search, I would check that out. And we're not going to go into those details here, but I do want to talk about some of the statistics related to networking, because it's very important. And obviously I don't think I need to convince a lot of you that networking is important, but I do want to give you an order of magnitude of just how important this is. So in that masterclass, when I talked about those activities and I broke down those work plans, one of the things that there were like three, actually there's 4 work plans, 3 related to just job searching, 1 related to career changing. And I broke the groups up into kind of the younger folks, and older workers and the younger workers. I broke you up into income levels, if you earned less than $60,000 or between 60 and 100 or over 100. But basically, for purposes of illustration today, all I want to mention is the younger folks and the lower earners, say under 6 figures, they had a 27% chance of finding their job through some networking tactic. 27%, so more than 1 in 4. And if you were on the higher spectrum, whether the higher age bracket or the higher earning bracket or both or whatever, or either or, you had a 46% chance of finding your job through somebody you know. Think about that. Wrap your mind around that. 1 in 2 chances. So when I put those work plans together for you, as you can imagine, I was recommending that half of the time, if you are in the older bracket or higher earning bracket, you should spend half your time networking. And even if you're on the younger side, you still should spend at least a quarter of your time networking. So I wanted to impress that upon you. Now, I don't think I'm going to get a whole lot of arguments from you guys today that's an important thing to do. I know that you get that. But like a lot of things in our lives, you should get 8 hours of sleep. You should be eating right in a well-balanced diet, and you shouldn't be eating fatty foods and all this other good stuff. But common sense is not always common practice. So we've got that issue. But what we also have is I don't know exactly what I want to call these. Now, if you saw me a couple days ago, I was very empathetic and compassionate, and was very soft and a little coddling. But today I'm going to give you some tough love, because I think a lot of us, because I hear this on a daily basis. Andy, I can't network. I haven't talked with my network in a decade. It's not nurtured. Or my network isn't very big. Or I don't know anybody at that company. Or I'm moving out of state. I'm moving out of country. I'm moving off the planet. Whatever it is, a lot of these things are simply excuses. They are simply excuses. And we've got it in our head that we don't want to take advantage of this, but the fact of the matter is we just don't want to put in the elbow grease to make sure that we're taking advantage of one of the most rich avenues for us to find our next job. So I want to help you get over that and get by that and not even think about that stuff, not even worry about that stuff. So let's kind of move the discussion off of that into some of the things that I think people are doing or not doing, or doing them incorrectly. I'm going to give you some tips, then I want to go into a little bit more of a structured outline of how I would approach this. So let's go into some of the 5 biggies that I think people don't really do effectively, but I want to actually, this is going to be 6 of these, because number zero is, just so we're all clear, networking is something that you should be doing all the time. So you got to build it and you got to nurture it. This is an ongoing professional networking exercise that everybody should be doing, no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, no matter what it is that you do. Now, the purposes of this discussion isn't going to center around building all these relationships and how I would do this on an ongoing basis and the fact that you should be giving out to the world before you're asking. But the good news is I've created a video called Business Networking, How to Build Professional Relationships. And it's a popular, very popular video. It's on my YouTube channel. I would check it out. The link is in the description. But if you want to make sure that you are building and nurturing a healthy relationship, networking, or a healthy professional network, check that video out. It's maybe 10 minutes, 9-10 minutes, but it's really good. I give you my exact mechanics of how to do it, especially if you are time pressed. So it's very effective. Those are the techniques that I use. You should be doing it all the time, but we are where we are. So let's focus on the job search networking aspect of this. So one of the first big mistakes that people make is they don't do it in a targeted fashion. So when you get let go, or even if you're not let go, but you don't like your job and you want to get out of it, what do? A lot of times people just start calling their friends, and they're not very directed, they're not very thoughtful or purposeful or deliberate about where they want to go. So it's done kind of in a haphazard manner. But the other thing that this causes them to do, so 1 and 2 kind of go hand in hand. But one of the things that the non-targeting causes them to do is it causes them to be fairly vague in the request and the reach out to the other person, to the other party. Let me give you an example. There's a guy, I absolutely love this guy. I would call him a friend. And I helped him get his job in 2005. And we've developed a great relationship over the years. My guess is he's going to retire in 5 years, and I'll know him for the rest of my life. A friendly relationship. A number of months ago, he emails me for some help, like I would expect from him. That I would invite that. I would want him to do that. He sends me an email and he says, Andy, hey, my son, who's 25, works at this trading company, and he's not really happy. He wants to move on. Do you have any ideas? That's vague, because what are my questions? What does he actually do at the trading firm? Why doesn't he like it? Does he have any idea of what he's interested in or where he wants to go? If he would have given me that information, I would have been able to respond immediately. But instead, now because he's a friend and I'm going to make the effort to get back to him, I had to make sure that I had enough slack time in my calendar to call him and ask him that. And because I actually wanted to understand and give him some insight, it took me 5 weeks to get back to him. And when I got back to him, what did I ask him? Just those same questions. And he was able to give me that, and I was immediately able to help him right on the spot. So you want to be careful about not being too vague in your ask, and we'll get specific here. The other thing that people do is they limit their networking reach out to who it is they already know, instead of thinking about getting at people who can help them that they don't currently know. And I'm going to give you some perspective on this, but you need to stretch your networking. And by the way, as a side note, in step 0 there, where I was talking about you should be building this all the time, one of the greatest things that you can do when you're network building is you should be focused not only on helping the person in whatever it is that they need, but a great way that you can help them is by expanding their network and introducing them to other people. If it stops with you, then the chain dies with you, and that's just an unfortunate situation. So you want to make sure that you are reaching out to people that you do not know. And the other thing is, you don't want to take no for an answer. And I'll be specific about what I mean. I don't mean I want you to call them screaming, I won't take no for an answer kind of thing. I want to make sure that if you are getting some engagement in the way in which you reach out to somebody, even if they are closing the door apparently to you saying, I'm not sure, I don't know, I can't help, and so on, that you are continuing your requests of what it is they might be able to help you with. So don't take no for an answer. I'll give you a little bit more on that in the case study. The other thing that I see people doing, it's really hurting them because it chews up a lot of time, is they go to the wrong networking groups. I have nothing against networking groups. In fact, I would encourage you to belong to them. But I want to make sure that you pick those carefully. You only have so many hours in the day where you can actually go to these kind of things. They chew up a lot of time, and if you do them right, you should be meeting a lot of people and nurturing those relationships. But what I see a lot of people doing is that they're going to networking groups that are filled with a lot of unemployed people in their niche. So wait, there's nothing wrong with being unemployed. I was unemployed once, and it doesn't make me a bad person or anybody a bad person. But if you are going to spend your limited time that you have to be effectively job searching, and you are going to networking groups where everybody's goal in the group is to get a job, and you're all IT professionals or IT executives or salespeople or whatever, that's not very effective. You're all competing for the same jobs, and there's very little you can do for each other. Instead, what I would do is to go to networking groups that major focus is on education. So whatever your niche is, if you're a network engineer and you want to go to network engineering networking groups, I suppose, if you want to go to those where they have speakers and the purpose is for education and to talk about new ideas and trends and so on and so forth with the majority of the people who are actually employed and happy, that could probably help you get into their organization, that's where I would rather you spend your time. So this little list here, this little 5-6 item list is really a, kind of a don't do this, do that instead. On its way to, I want to give you a more prescriptive formula of how I would go through this. So the kind of understanding, some of those mistakes we make, or maybe the reasons that we're reluctant to throw ourselves out there using this great avenue for job searching. The one thing that will keep you on the straight and narrow, the one thing that I want you to hang on to, the one tip, the one thing I want to be the centerpiece of all of your networking is I want you to make sure that you target where you want to go. Where you want to go. Knowing your end state, knowing your end spot will help you get there faster. Now, I'm not just talking about I want to work for Apple or Google or whatever. That's great, and you can have a list of companies that are potential end spots for you. It could be a market, it could be a type of groups, it could be clusters, it could be a city or a state or a country, it could be whatever, but put a flag down and say, these are the possibilities that align to my interests and all of that good stuff. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are targeting where you want to go. That is the number one best tip when you are networking. Now, I'm going to help you with how to get there, but you got to know where you want to go. Now, for purposes of our discussion, and you could adjust this analogy however you want for your particular situation, but for most of you are looking to get at a great company, better company, a different company, even if it's a different career. So we're going to talk about making a company list first. So the first thing that I want you to do in terms of figuring out where you want to go is number one, I want you to make a company list, a targeted company list of where you want to go. So if you do not know how to do this, the good news is I did a whole live office hour session on literally titled How to Create a Target Company List for Your Job Search. So I give you the 12 steps and the different ideas and all that good stuff. Basically, you want to make a list. So before you start calling anybody, and don't call your mom, don't call your dad, don't call me, don't do anything. Sit down, do the research, figure out what potential companies would be suitable for you. Because that's the first thing. Now, I'm not saying it's got to be all-inclusive. I'm not saying it's got to be 1,000 companies. 100 companies would be phenomenal. 50 is okay. But you give yourself a starting point so you can effectively do the second step, which is after you figure out where you want to go, figure out who can take you there. So then what you want to do is you want to map your people. You want to map your people. So first thing is, okay, these are the possibilities. These are places that I can investigate, that likely I would be interested in, that could likely use a person, a guy or a gal like me with my skill sets and so on. Now, figure out who do you know that either works there or can help you get to somebody who works there. That's networking. Now, how you do that? Well, there's this site called LinkedIn. It's got 500 million people on it or more. I don't know what the number is now. All you need to do is go to LinkedIn. There's a little button there that allows you to download your contacts into a CSV file. I don't care if you got 10. I don't care if you got 500 or 5,000 or 15,000 or 30,000 is the max. Just get the list. Get the list and sort it by company, sort it by name, sort it by company, sort it however you want, and start matching. Okay, so map your people to the companies. The other thing you can do, you take your company list, you go on LinkedIn, start typing the company name. It'll show you who you know there that works there as well. It will also show you if there are people that are second connections. All right, you just got to find out, well, okay, I'm connected to Jane Smith, who knows John Doe, who works at the company. So you got to map your people. That's a second step I would take. Now, you might say, well, Andy, I don't have a really long list, and I don't really know anybody, and they don't know anybody, or they're not calling me back. Well, okay, move on to the next one. Start looking at those companies. Start looking at the people at those companies. So you start developing relationships with them online. You got to start somewhere. I know you got to do it in a hurry, but better you start and get engaged in doing this and figuring out who potential teammates might be, who are people that might know somebody you know, or any which way. Look for people that work at that company and try to connect with them. Don't send them a connection request blindly. Send them an in-mail or send them an email or some which way to open up a relationship. I'm not going to go into all the dialogue on that, but you got to open it up and start getting connected with those people. And if the dialogue leads to a connection, that's a good thing. Okay? But you can target people that work there. Start building the wall brick by brick. Then the next thing that you can do, also along the lines of number 3, but I wanted to call this one out because this is a really neat tactic I can give you, and I came up with this one a long time ago. You can boss hunt. So in terms of mapping people in your companies that you're targeting, one of the things you can do is you can look at, do you think that you can identify the particular man or woman that or group or whatever that you would work in or for, or however you want to say it. They could be your potential boss. Now, it doesn't have to be your exact boss as if you know the entire organization. It could be a senior level person in the group you're trying to get in. That's totally okay too. It's totally okay too. And with the boss hunting, the wonderful thing about that is I did a video on how to boss hunt. So I not only tell you exactly how to do the technique, I created 2 cover letters. One if you knew a job existed, and one if you did not know if a job existed. So you're basically just targeting the person, and I give you the exact language to use, even if there's no position. And if there is a position and you know it and you're fairly confident that that's the person, because that's the person who manages the sales group in Chicago, and I'm a salesperson in Chicago, and that's likely going to be my boss. Okay, so either which way. But that's the 4th thing that I would do. So, company list, map your people to that company list, then start identifying people in those organizations that you don't know or you don't have connections to, start reaching out to them, and then also see if you can boss hunt. Now, these 4, if you want to know how effective this is, I've got a case study for you. There's a woman, her name is Stephanie, and she was in my first boot camp, which was in December of last year. So about not quite a year ago, but she was in boot camp 1. And she had been struggling for months. She was a salesperson, kind of a mid to upper level salesperson. had a salary, but mostly earned commissions, and she was out of work and she was really struggling. She gets into the boot camp, and the boot camp is designed in 5 sessions, and one of the sessions is the resume writing and the cover letters and so on. In the next session, that's the second session, and the third session is about job searching. It's much, much deeper on what we're going through here and how you target and how you go after and how you build a company list and so on. So she'd gone through the program. She revamped her resume. I reviewed it. It looked really good. Then she started to go through the process and built the target company lists and so on. She reached out to me and she said, "Hey, I'm getting responses on my resume." Actually, if you attended session 1 of this program, I had a testimonial of hers where she said, "Hey, I'm getting responses on all the send outs and on almost all I applied to C-levels and so on." So things were going pretty good, but she said, "Hey, I really think I could use some help. I want to tighten up a few things, some messaging and so on. Could we do a coaching call?" Which we did. We did a coaching call midday on a Monday. She came to the session. She had her resume. Everything was in order. We talked a little bit about what she'd been doing. And one of the things that I asked her to do before the session was to come to the session with her 10 favorite companies that she wanted to target that she had not targeted yet. And we were going to talk about those, whether they had positions open or not, but the companies and whatever other insight she could get on the companies, if she could find people and so on. She did. She came with the companies. She came with the targeted individuals. So it was either she was in sales, vice president of sales, or it was the chief operating officer or CEO of a small company or whatever. It was a variety of people, but she had all that. What we did was I said, okay, here's what we'll do. Tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, which is the best time to send communications to people that you do not know. Tuesday morning, send out your 10 emails with the boss hunting cover letter and your resume. 10 send outs on Friday. 4 days later, call me, let me know how this all played out. She sent the 10 messages. 3 days goes by, she reaches back to me. Maybe it was on Saturday. She reaches back to me and she said, "Okay, here's what happened. I sent the 10 out. 2 of them didn't respond." So, okay, that's actually pretty good. 2 of them didn't respond. So I got 5 people who responded and said no. I said, awesome. And then I got 3 interviews. Now, the quick side of the piece of the story is one of those 3 interviews, she actually took the job, which is great. But that's actually not even where I want this story to end because there's so much more information for you to know about networking. The 5 folks that got back to her said, "Thank you for reaching out. We can't use you at this time. You're not a fit." Whatever they said. Didn't matter. We expected that. So in our Monday session, I said, okay, when you send your resume out, you're going to get no's. Don't take no for an answer. What do you do when you don't take no for an answer? If you get a response, awesome, because now this is effectively networking. You can continue the dialogue. If somebody doesn't reply to you, you can't chase them, right? You can't make them reply to you. But if they do reply to you and they say no, then here's what you say to them. "Hey, thank you so much for reviewing it. While I'm really interested in you and your organization, please let me know if anything changes. Otherwise, I will check in with you in a couple months to see if anything, next quarter or whenever it is, to see if anything has changed. In the meantime, as you can see, I am job searching. Do you know of any other organizations or individuals who might be building out their teams that could use somebody with my skill set?" 2 of the 5 got back to her. 2 of the 5 got back to her, gave her vice president of sales, their buddies at some other company. She sent them messages. Both of them called her. They had interviews. That is how you keep it rolling. And that shifted from an employment application or opener, or I don't really care what you call it, but that's networking. And that is taking advantage of all the responses that you get no matter what they are. Because if the dialogue is going, good things like this can happen. But if you don't respond after they say no, or you don't make the attempt, or you keep shoving that resume into an applicant tracking system, you can't make any of this stuff happen. So I love that story. Not only do I love the outcome, but all of the other rich pieces of insight that you can gain from that. And those 4 tactics that I gave you, build the company list, map your people, target people at those organizations, and then the boss hunting, she had a little bit of all of that in there. Now, those 10 actually were all boss huntings. The All Boss Hunting cover letters. So that's available to you. I would go and grab it. So that's that technique. So if you're loving this, I know we had a little hiccup there. Hit the thumbs up. We're gonna go to the chat here. I'm gonna try to find it on this new screen that we're using, and let's take your questions. For those of you that are watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week.